Hi boys and girls, welcome back to Aunt Vicky's. It's story time again. If you recall, one of our stories was about Cuddles and Spuddles and the lollipops. Well, I went shopping the other day and I bought 4 lollipops. Bubblegum, cherry, banana, and strawberry. Do you like lollipops, boys and girls? Well, Aunt Vicky does. Okay, once again, it's time to get started with a new story just for you. As always, Aunt Vicky's magical hat box, Aunt Vicky's magical teapot. And I don't know, boys and girls, if you have ever noticed on our little magical teapot, I think I have showed this probably to you once before. We have a small teddy bear and little flowers on this side. And on this side is like little bells and a heart. It's really cute. And of course it lights up and it plays music. So, there we go. And here is our story for today. And remember, our poem always gives a clue to the story. And today, the name of our poem will be, Oh, What a Shame. Now listen closely and let's see, because today the clue is not in the title of the story. It's somewhere else hidden inside of the poem, okay? Butterflies dance happily in the morning sunshine, yellow and bright. They danced here and there until they danced completely out of sight. Bees hummed and nestled in vines of wild-growing honeysuckle sweet. They hummed and buzzed about their delightful treat. Birds sang high in the treetops and chirped among the leaves. They chirped and chirped about the dancing butterflies and humming bees. Butterflies danced as bees hummed and birds sang until the rain came. Then suddenly they all hushed as it rained and rained. Oh, what a shame. Okay, the clue, as I say, is inside the poem today. And if you guessed, butterflies? Oh, yes, you guessed right. Good. Okay, here's the story. Cuddles and Spuddles on the Scary Woods. It was a beautiful spring morning and Leafy Farm was all abuzz, with chirping birds singing and Sir General Red the rooster crowing, while the pretty speckled hens laying and clucked all about their pretty eggs. Even Betsy the milk cow mooed cheerfully. Cap the sheepdog and Maudie the mama cat were following Mr. Rivers about as he tended his flower garden. Mr. and Mrs. Leafy were busy building a pen for the new spring pigs that they had bought from their neighbor over on the next farm. The Leafys were excited about getting the pigs, but they had to build a pen before they could go and get them. After all, it wouldn't do to have baby pigs running everywhere. Cuddles and Spuddles are chasing butterflies that darted about here and there up on the beautiful wild flowers. As they chased the butterflies, they came to the edge of Leafy's woods. Now the kittens had never went into the woods before because they thought it seemed rather dark and scary among all those big trees. But as Cuddles and Spuddles continued to chase the butterflies, they were so busy and fascinated that they didn't even pay attention to where they had been going. The kittens chased the butterflies all the way into the middle of Leafy's woods. There was a long flowing creek bed of water that ran through the woods, and Cuddles and Spuddles finally stopped to get a drink and to rest for a moment. The kittens sipped the cool water and then sat back to enjoy the rays of sunlight that streamed down between the leaves of the trees. The wind blew through the woods, and the leaves made floating shadows upon the clear creek's rippling waters. Spuddles began to look about, and he asked Cuddles, "How far back is it to the farm cottage?" Cuddles sighed and sat up lazily, and as she did so, she began to realize that they were in the middle of the woods. Both kittens were startled to see they had come so far into the woods, and in fact, as they took a look around, they began to think to themselves that they just might be lost. Cuddles and Spuddles stared at each other, and Cuddles asked, "Do you know how to get back to the cottage?" Spuddles meowed in a frightening meowing sound. "I don't have any idea." The kittens then knew it was true. They were lost. What's more, they began feeling very scared, too. Cuddles and Spuddles both felt like just crying, but they knew it would not do them any good at all to cry. "Well," said Cuddles, "I think we should go this way to get back to the cottage." "I don't think so," meowed Spuddles. "I think it's this way." The kittens just stood there for a few minutes and then tried to see if they could remember which way they had come into the woods. But the more they tried to figure it out, the more confused they had become. So they decided to follow the creek bed because Spuddles remembered hearing Mr. Leafy say the creek ran all the way from one end of the woods to the other end. The kittens followed the rippling water for what seemed like hours, and the sun was lowering over the woods. Cuddles and Spuddles knew if they didn't come to the end of the creek soon, they would be completely in the dark. The kittens began to walk a bit faster because the last place they wanted to be after dark was in those big woods. They had often sat and listened to Old Wiser the Owl tell spooky stories of the animals who lived there, and he had always warned the kittens and told them to never wander into those woods, for it was no place for two little kittens to be. Cuddles and Spuddles were now exhausted, and Cuddles meowed that she just had to rest. So she and Spuddles sat by the sparkling running creek bed, and as they did, the sun now was completely setting, and the stars were beginning to pop out one by one. The twin kittens hugged closely to each other as a big full moon made its way high up into the night sky. "What are we going to do?" asked Cuddles. Spuddles looked at all the trees surrounding them and knew it would do no good to try to get out of the woods tonight. He meowed to Cuddles and said, "The best thing we can do is to climb up one of those big trees and wait for morning, and then maybe we can find our way home." The twin kittens began climbing up the big tree beside them, and about halfway up, they found a thick branch covered with soft leaves. The kittens snuggled down in the leaves and began to listen to all the strange noises in the woods. Even though the moon was full and bright, the ground below was dark, and strange sounds of all kinds could be heard. Cuddles and Spuddles snuggled close to each other, and as the night went on, the noises below became even louder. They could hear scratching and rummaging about underneath the tree. Something made a loud crashing sound, and they heard a squeaking noise. Then a long, loud howling filled the night, and it came straight below the branch on which they were sitting. Poor Cuddles and Spuddles had never felt so frightened. Spuddles meowed to Cuddles, "Well, at least we can see the moon and the stars." But as the kittens looked up, they could see clouds were beginning to hide the night sky. Suddenly, they could see lightning somewhere off in the distance and heard a low thunder behind it. They snuggled even closer as they felt a few drops of rain splatter onto the branch where they sat. It was plain to see this was going to be a long night for the twin kittens, and also a night they would not soon forget. Back at the farm cottage, Mr. and Mrs. Leafy and Cap searched everywhere for Cuddles and Spuddles. Cap had went to ask old Wiser the Owl if he might have seen the kittens, but Wiser was not in his nest. Mr. and Mrs. Leafy checked all over the barn, but the kittens were just nowhere to be found. Mr. Leafy decided it was best to go inside because it seemed like the weather was getting a bit stormy and it had now begun to rain. When they got inside, Mrs. Leafy picked up the phone and called Mr. Rivers. The phone rang and rang, but finally Mr. Rivers answered and said, "Hello." Mrs. Leafy told him all about the kittens missing and that she wondered if he had seen them. "No," said Mr. Rivers, "I haven't seen them today, but Marty the mama cat is resting in the sitting room, and he told Mrs. Leafy he would check and see if the kittens might have come in to be with her." So Mrs. Leafy waited a moment, and then she heard Mr. Rivers pick back up the phone, and he said, "I am so sorry, Mrs. Leafy, but the kittens aren't with Marty." "Well, okay," said Mrs. Leafy. "Thank you." As she hung up the phone, Mr. Leafy told her it was best that they got a good night's sleep and that they could look for the kittens right after breakfast in the morning. That night, Cap lay on the big, thick, round rug as usual, but as he looked at Cuddles and Spuddles' empty crate bed, he felt very sad. He just kept swishing his long, shaggy tail back and forth until he finally fell asleep. The twin kittens were now shivering and soaking wet. The cold rain was pouring and the weather was so stormy. The winds howled and blew fiercely all night long. The kittens hugged each other tightly, and as they sat on the tree branch shivering, they finally began to fall asleep. Cuddles and Spuddles were exhausted, and as they slept through the night, the rain just kept pouring, and the lightning kept flashing, and the thunder kept roaring. When the storm finally did quit, it was breaking day. The rain clouds floated away, and sunlight was now beginning to peek through the leaves onto the branch where the kittens slept. Suddenly, Cuddles and Spuddles were awakened by a crowing sound coming from somewhere far away. The kittens stirred and tried to shake some of the water off their fur. Then once again they heard the crowing sound. The kittens both listened very carefully, and they heard it once more. "Come on," called Spuddles, "let's go home." "But how do we know which way to go?" meowed Cuddles. Once more the kittens heard the crowing sound. "Did you hear that?" asked Spuddles. "That is Sir General Red the Rooster's morning crow, and I know exactly which direction it's coming from." Quickly the kittens climbed down out of the tree, and as Spuddles led the way, Cuddles ran after him. As the kittens ran as fast as they could toward home, Cuddles meowed excitedly, "Follow that rooster's crowing." When they reached the edge of the woods, they stopped and paused for a moment. The kittens had to catch their breath, and as they did, they began to sniff the air. "Do you smell that?" asked Cuddles. "I sure do," meowed Spuddles in reply. "That smell is coming from the cottage, and it's Mrs. Leafy cooking breakfast." The kittens raced to the back kitchen door of the farm cottage and began pawing as hard and as loud as they could. Mr. Leafy opened the door, and Cuddles and Spuddles ran past him. Mr. Leafy laughed at the kittens and asked, "Well, what do we have here?" Mrs. Leafy replied, "It's two kittens, and they are both soaking wet." Mrs. Leafy got warm, soft towels, and she and Mr. Leafy wrapped the kittens and began rubbing them dry. Cap was so excited and happy that he barked and ran in circles, wagging his long, shaggy tail. Soon the kittens were dry and their little tummies were full. I believe that's the best breakfast I have ever had, meowed Spuddles. Me too, meowed Cuddles. All the rest of that day, the twin kittens lay in the sunny kitchen window seat, watching Sir General Red the rooster and the pretty speckled laying hens as they scratched and pecked here and there in the grass outside. I never thought I would ever like Sir General Red, meowed Spuddles, but I sure was happy to hear him crowing this morning. Yes, meowed Cuddles back in reply. Maybe he isn't such a mean rooster after all. Another day had come and gone on Leafy Farm, but that night the kittens slept snugly beneath their pretty handmade quilt in their own soft crate box bed. The stars twinkled and the moon was once again shining down full and bright. Cap looked over at the kittens and smiled in a gentle bark, and he said, "Nighty night." Oh, boys and girls, we do have fun here at Vicky's Story Times, and I enjoy just knowing that you're there and that you're enjoying these stories. It makes it so worth all the wonderful days that Aunt Vicky has here at the Thomas Cottage on the Tennessee River, to be able to know that my boys and girls will come to visit me. And once again, boys and girls, I ask that you would please write to Aunt Vicky. Send me some of your pictures that you have drawn that you might think that Cuddles and Spuddles looks like. And if you would do that, I'm going to have a little contest very soon, boys and girls. And the one who draws the best picture of Cuddles and Spuddles, the best drawing, will get a prize. And we'll talk about that prize a little later on. But please, have a very, very safe and wonderful summer, okay? And as always, Aunt Vicky says, have a sweet nighty night.